Are you ready?
I'm ready. Go for it.
All right, so we are live.
All right. Good morning, everybody. This is our first segment of Mike and Mike from the new studio here in Sarasota, Florida. It's approximately a mile away from our retail store.
In a top secret location.
Still in a top secret location. Absolutely true. We're still getting the mail from the previous tenant in this location. But anyway, we're here and we're excited. We thank everybody for watching and joining, and we're going to be taking your questions today. We're going to go over a couple of other topics of discussion as well. So feel free to ask away. And don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button. We do appreciate it. So Rick is actually not here in the studio today. He will be here tomorrow. We're going to be filming a segment. Rick is actually building a staircase for his mother.
Is he really?
Yeah, he said he built the original one in 1976, but this one, it's on the outside of the house. It's actually rotted away, so he's rebuilding it. So
well, it lasted this long.
Oh, it lasted this long, yeah. So he's out in the Florida heat the last few days building this staircase, and I've been getting pictures along the way of each step as he's doing it.
Each step.
He's a man of many skills. I will tell you that much. Yeah, and his mom is actually over 100 years old, and she was in the circus, if you can believe it, for Ringling Brothers, and she is a sweetheart of a lady. She still drives. Which I can't believe at, over
that worries me.
Well, no, she's a good driver. She has to take her test every year, Rick said, just to go back. And so every year she passes,
That's actually a good thing.
Yeah. She's an amazing lady. I mean, she does not, look or move like someone who's almost 101, I assure you. So, but hats off to those guys, and Rick's a great guy. So, of the things. Sorry, go ahead.
What are we doing? What is this? What are we doing?
What are we doing? Well, Mike and Mike are taking questions from folks live. We are live here in the studio, so we're taking your questions. We're hopefully able to answer and give some insight. While we don't have questions, I'll go into some of the products that we have new in the store, talk maybe a little bit about industry news that's going on, and hopefully spark some interest from the folks here watching live. One of the things that I want to talk about was we have a couple of new products in the store. We received a pair of Neat Orchestra loudspeakers.
Neat acoustics
from the UK, I believe.
They are.
And we received a pair from the distributor Fidelis, and Walter was pretty high on these speakers, and he said, I need to give them a listen. They have an isobaric bass. When you're setting them up, it's a little bit tricky. You can't just take them out of the box or the crate and stand them up. You actually have to lay them on their side and put on the outriggers first, the feet, because the bass driver, the woofer on the bottom, is actually below the cabinet. So if the cabinet is here, it's approximately here, and so you would actually damage the driver. So you need to put those 4 outriggers on first, and then you can stand the speaker up. So but anyway,
I love them.
Yeah, they're great. They're very small in size. I mean, they're yay big, 3 feet maybe. Ribbon tweeter, which is wide dispersion ribbon tweeter, very beautiful sounding, great integration with the mid-range. The bass, the isobaric bass, is quite impressive for the size. The bass that you get is very impressive for the size of the speaker. Retails for $8,300, somewhere in there. A variety of different finishes. So, we decided to keep that speaker, and, interest so far has been good. There's a lot of people shopping below $10,000 a pair, and these are certainly a good size, good shape, not too big, not too overpowering in a room, and very good sound. So that's something that we recently got in a couple of weeks ago.
And when you look at them, they're deceiving,
Right.
in my opinion. Like
Right.
you look at it, you don't think it's gonna produce the sound that it does.
Correct.
It's incredible.
Yeah, incredible.
For the money especially.
For the money especially. We, not to air dirty laundry, but we did get a pair of Lin active speakers come in, the 530, I think they were, and we listened and we sent them back. So that's all I'll say on that. But we are still actively looking for a good active speaker.
We are.
And in active speaker news today, some sad news. The founder of ATC, Bob Woodman, Bill Woodman, my mistake. Sorry. Bill Woodman passed away. His family made a post a couple of hours ago that he had passed away. So sad news for the ATC family, the Woodman family. So we wish them all the best. So
my condolences.
Yeah, absolutely. On to another new product we have in the store is the brand new Luxman 507Z integrated. This is the new series of integrateds coming out from Luxman. So you had the 507, U2X, I forget all the nomenclature, but anyway,
UXI,
yeah, there was a whole bunch of letters and numbers and whatnot afterwards. But anyway, the new one is very simply the 507Z, and it has replaced the previous 507 integrated. Some new technology in there. There's a new digital readout as well for the volume control between the VU meters. I think it's actually pretty cool. It looks a little different than the more traditional classic look of the VU meters on their own. So you still have the VU meters, but you do have the digital display now, and in the middle for the volume control. I actually like it. I think it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's outstanding.
Sonically, a big step up from the 507. So the previous 507. So this new 507Z is definitely, I would say it's got a little bit more meat on the bones, a little warmer, a little more dimensionality to it, but still retains that Luxman sweetness and musicality. So very impressive new integrated from Luxman.
Yeah.
So we've been breaking that in. We've probably got 200 hours on it now. We've kind of left it playing for
with the neats.
With the neats. So
perfect pairing, by the way.
Yeah, great pairing. That's a really good combo. So the neat with the Luxman 507Z has been a great pairing, and we've been breaking them in together, and we've been demoing them together. So they sound very, very good. So we do have some other things coming in for evaluation this month. We also are very excited to be getting the MSB Digital Director, which is a new product category essentially from MSB. Suncoast Audio is the largest MSB dealer in the country by a mile, and we are very excited to be getting this product in. So what is the Digital Director? Everyone calls me and says, what the hell is it? So what is it? It is a new product category in where the modules from an MSB DAC. So you've got your Pro USB, you've got your SPDIF, your AES EBU, Ethernet, whatever. You've got your different connections that were modular based in the back of an MSB DAC. Great advantage now are in the Digital Director. So any kind of noise that those may have been creating are now isolated in the Digital Director. It also, the big thing is, it also allows more of a quote unquote playground for FPGA updates, software updates, things like that, because it's got much more memory and space for the developers to use. The third thing it does, according to MSB, and I'm really looking forward to testing this out, is that now all of the inputs, whether you're using SPDIF or AES EBU or USB or Ethernet, they all have the same level of quality of sound. So they've managed to bring all of them up to a certain level. So we're very excited to get that in the store, test it, and see what we hear. So
I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's a completely novel idea.
It's very different. They, the folks at MSB are very excited about the product. Keep telling you, Mike, it's a game changer. Mike, it's a game changer. So we're excited to get that in and give it a listen and evaluate. We've had a couple of months to wrap our head around it. But I know they've been working on it for many, many years, actually, this concept. So, it'll be fun to try and see how it is. So there's two versions. There's going to be a version ideally for the chassis will match the reference DAC, and then another version where the chassis will match the select DAC. Does that mean if you have a discrete or a Premier, this isn't for you? No. It's just that they're both identical, except the chassis are different. So, if you had a discrete or Premier, you may as well go for the reference, Director and save some money, if you don't need the beveled, finish. So like the Select has. So, Mike, any questions?
No questions from me.
Okay.
I mean, I'm curious about that album you got sitting over there.
Well, one of the things I want to do is start a segment on album of the week. And this week, this is one of the treasures in my collection. This is the Boz Scaggs 2004 live album, and it's entitled Greatest Hits Live, Boz Scaggs. Came out in, as I mentioned, it was a concert in 2004 at the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco. It's a very, very good recording.
Tilt that forward just a little bit, Mike. There you go. So
very good recording, and mastered by Bernie Grumman. Probably a digital recording. It doesn't say it was analog, but probably a digital recording. It is available on Qobuz, Tidal, CD, vinyl. The vinyl pressings seem a little rare. That seems like the minute they have some copies pressed to vinyl, they're all sold out. So I did get a pair or get an album many years ago, and it's a 3-album series or set, I should say, and it's got all the great Boz Scaggs songs that you would know. Low Down, Slow Dancer, Heart of Mine, Harbor Lights, JoJo, Georgia. I mean, just so many great Boz Scaggs albums. So,
and they're also they're different versions too, which is cool.
Yeah, the live version is very good. I like live albums. I'm always looking for great live albums. The gold standard is the Hugh Masekela Hope.
Absolutely.
I think that live album is as good as live albums could ever get.
I would agree.
And if you don't have that album, you need that album. It is phenomenal. The vinyl is fantastic. You can get it from Acoustic Sounds. You can get it from Elusive Disc. There's a number of places online that you can get this album, and also the one I was telling you about, the Hugh Masekela Hope. That is a fantastic album. So check that one out. Some other good live recordings. I have Alison Krauss Live. Yep. That's a good album. I actually do have the Mobile Fidelity pressing, which is very, very good. That's the best version I've ever heard of that album. It's fantastic. Some other good live albums. I love the Eric Clapton, Steve Winwood live at Madison Square Gardens. Now, it isn't the best recording, but the music is fantastic, especially when they get into some Jimi Hendrix tunes.
Oh, yeah.
Start playing. It's cranking. It's cranking.
Yeah.
So lots of great live albums. Obviously, Neil Young live at Massey Hall. That's a great album to listen to as well. Neil was in his prime at that time, and the recording is fantastic. The story about that particular album is that Neil used to bring a reel-to-reel deck whenever he went on stage for his own benefit to play back and listen to how his performance was.
So he would record himself.
And he found these tapes years and years and years later.
Wow.
And that's how we ended up with, Live at Massey Hall. And there's a couple of other albums that were, from those tape series. So very, very cool.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good piece of info there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's coming straight from the tapes, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In other industry news, we read that Chief Operating Officer, COO Walter Schofield has left Krell. He started with Krell, I believe, back in 2018, and he has left. And we do wish him and the folks at Krell all the best. So that's pretty much it for the industry news. You know, in the summer, it's kind of slow. With respect to, I know a lot of people ask me about the supply chain. You know, are we seeing things improving? I would say ever so slightly.
Yeah,
we're seeing, you know, for example, pass was 12 months out to get anything. I mean, it didn't matter if it was an integrated or a preamp or a phono stage. It didn't matter what it was. They were about 12. Now they're approximately 8 months out, so slightly improving on delivery. Some of the other manufacturers kind of improving a little bit. So there's like a light at the end of the tunnel. Some are very quick. I mean, you know, some MSB has been historically very quick at getting product. Well, no, Aqua's been a couple of months to get anything new.
Yeah, a few months.
Lumen's been very quick. Arender's been very quick. So there's been a lot that have been able to produce and get products out the door quickly. Some have, you know, it's been several months. So
or more.
Yeah, actually, we had a customer waiting on a name product 15 months, and it arrived last week. Yeah. So that was the longest, 15 months.
Far.
Yeah, he ordered, I think, in what was it? Matt told me like March of 2020 or something. I forget what it was, but it was a long time ago. March of 2021. It was a long time ago. But he did get his name product. So thank you for all those folks out there. Everybody's always asking for updates, and we appreciate it. And we're the exact same way on our end. But, you know, the bottom line is it'll come when it comes. And these manufacturers trust me, they're doing everything they can to get the raw materials, to get the products that they need to build the components, to get them out the door as quickly as possible. So, you know, we appreciate everybody's patience during this difficult time, and hopefully things will go back to normal sooner rather than later with respect to supply chain.
Yeah. So that done with everything
intro
intro
that's
related?
Everything I've got for the intro. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we do have a few questions.
Okay.
Our first question came from TDI Nut.
Okay.
He said, he just said, welcome back.
Thank you.
And then we've got, his name is CA Flat. Am I getting that right? Let me know in the chat. But I think that's correct. And he's asking, what are our thoughts on Ethernet filters?
So Ethernet filters as in respect to switches, or Ethernet filters in respect to something like a gigafoil? That's the clarification I would need.
Same.
So in terms of the switches, the gigafoil is a product that essentially takes Ethernet in. It's an industrial product. So it looks like crap, but it sounds good.
It's made of solid lead.
So this is an industrial product that Vince at MSB found. So all full credit to him, told us about it. We brought it in and we were very impressed on what it did. So essentially it takes Ethernet in, cleans it up, converts it to fiber optic, and then Ethernet out. So it does work, and we've ended up being able to take the gigafoil to the next level by pairing it with a Casey's power supply. Now that's getting pretty much in the weeds here, but it does, when you put a linear power supply on the gigafoil, we've definitely heard an improvement over the stock wall wart that comes with the gigafoil. Gigafoil, I think, is around $600, give or take, and it definitely cleans up some of the noise on the line. The other products would be something like a switch. So you've got the Phoenix Net from Inuus. You've got the brand new Nordos QNet. We had in the store, a customer brought in the Synergistic Research one.
Mm-hmm.
We have another customer who will actually be a guest on our show one day, because he's out there. When it comes to the tweaks, he's out there.
Is it Jerry?
No, Pat.
Oh, Pat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he brought over some other switches and we were able to listen. The fundamental thing that I heard is that comparing to a Netgear and a Linksys that we have in the store, your run-of-the-mill $20, $30 Netgear that you buy on Amazon, what we found was that all of the aftermarket switches sort of did the same thing. The sonic improvements were... It wasn't that this one was so much better than this one. They were all sort of doing the same thing. They were cleaning up the signal, and they were bringing the soundstage seemed to come more forward. So I think on one podcast I was talking about an example where we had a customer bring in the Synergistic Research one to compare it to the Phoenix Net and the QNet from Nordos and whatnot. And we noticed that using the album Riding with the King, B.B. King and Eric Clapton, that the vocals were far more forward and three-dimensional with the aftermarket Ethernet switches than we found with the run-of-the-mill Netgear Linksys that we have. So I would say yes, there's definitely an improvement. The one I feel is the best, quote unquote, is kind of out there price-wise, but the Nordos QNet.
Yep.
Combined with the Nordos Q source, which is Nordos's linear power supply, and you use a LEMO connector between the QNet and the Q source, and it has the proper voltage selection on the bottom and whatnot. I found that combination to be outstanding, much better than the QNet by itself with a wall wart. So once again, we're seeing how important the power supply is in the mix of things.
And you also benefit with more outputs on that external power supply. It's not just for just one output, is it?
No, the Q source can be used for other products, other LEMO connected products.
Yeah.
You don't need the, you don't have to have the linear power supply from Nordos. There are other linear power supplies out there, but we found that the Q source sounded the best.
Yeah.
At least I did anyway. I thought it sounded great. I bought one for myself to tell you. I mean, at home, I actually bought the QNet and the Q source and the LEMO connector myself because I heard what it did in the store, and so I bought it for home as well. So
yeah, that says a lot.
Yeah.
So his question, he did clarify. His question was pertaining specifically to the Gigafoil.
Okay.
So if you have anything else to say about that,
other than if you touch it, wash your hands because it is lead. So if you buy one, and you definitely want to wash your hands. But yeah, with the Gigafoil, again, it's simple Ethernet in. It's an ugly box. It's Ethernet out. It does clean up the noise on the line, and I would highly recommend a linear power supply to go with it.
like a Kessie's,
like a Casey's or whatever. There's many out there, linear power supplies, but yeah, that's a good one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What else do we have here for questions? All right. So, Tarek Bahari, he's asking, do we have any preference for the best streamer that does not require Rune between Inuus and a render? So, between the two products, which do we prefer?
So streamer with a DAC or streamer without a DAC? Because with a DAC, Inuus only makes the Zen Mini that has a DAC built into it. And without a DAC, so what's our preference between the Inuus and the Arender? That's a really good question. I like the feature set of the Inuus in that it has the built-in ripper, and it's not a half-assed ripper. It's a really good ripping engine. And I also like the fact it has the built-in storage. So it has a lot of features. You also have the Inuus app, which I think is, if Rune is the best from a user standpoint, the UI on the Rune is outstanding. The Inuus app is like right there. It's right up there. I mean, it has the radio function, so it starts to learn your artists and things like that. In terms of sound, I still think the Arender is more warmer, organic, richer sounding, but the Inuus is not far off. So if you want the feature set and you want the best app and you want the ripping and the storage capability and everything built into one, I think the Inuus is a great way to go. And also the like something like the Zenith Mark III.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at 4,600 retail, with 1 terabyte, and obviously you can get 2 and 4 and 8 terabyte. It's just hard to beat. I mean, you're going to be spending more in the Arender space to get that performance. So I think they don't really play in the same field. I think that Inuus is sort of like their strength is sort of like sub 5K. Because you got the Zen Mini, then you have the Zen, and then you have the Zenith, right? And those are all below 5,000. So they have 3 products below 5,000. They all rip CDs. They all have storage. They all can run Rune. They all run the Inuus app, obviously. And there's some that's a great value, if you will. The strength of the Arenders really start picking in at like the N150, which is 3,500, and then the next step up is $6,000. Now you're into the N200, and then you have the N20 and the N30, and so on and so forth. So if we're talking without a DAC, then you definitely you need to look at your price point and your feature set that you want. I think sonically the Inuus is more, how can I say it? It has great separation, great dimensionality. The Arender, I'd say, is slightly warmer, maybe slightly more analog sounding, but they're both excellent. So I think a lot of it depends on the feature set that you're going for, and your budget, of course. So if you come and say my budget is 12,000. Or 11,000, I would grab an N20 in a heartbeat. If you say, no, I want to stay below 5,000, like I think that was your question, then I think the Zenith Mark III would be the way to go.
Yeah, and we just recently had a client pick up the Statement, and he's loving it. The Inuus,
which we are waiting to get into the store. We hopefully will have it by the end of the month, and then we'll be able to really evaluate it against, say, the N30 SA. We're excited. He's delighted. I mean, he feels that the Inuus app is so good and so close to Rune and sounds so much better than Rune that he is actually, as he told me the other day, ditched Rune. So he's just using strictly the Inuus app.
That's quite the statement.
Yeah.
So that says a lot.
Yeah, for sure. The Arender app, I think the Conductor app is stable. It's functional. It's very good. It's designed around sound first. It's got, enough features, functions, and graphics that you're okay with it. I would like to see it updated in the near future, and I think that's going to happen, but I just don't know when.
I mean, it's still, in my opinion, the Arender app, it's still definitely slightly better than something you would get with like a Lumen or something along those lines.
Yeah, the Lumen app has been around a long time, and it's very basic. It does the job. It sounds good. But the Arender app is sort of that next level. Rune is the ultimate in terms of usability and UI and searching and so many great things Rune does. But sadly, we've found it's not the best sounding.
Right.
Actually, I was just doing a test this morning again to make sure I wasn't losing my mind, but I was comparing an album on Rune using the Takeo into the MSB DAC, using the Pro USB, Pro SL, and I was then switching over on the Takeo to the Taz software, and there was no doubt the Taz software sounded better on the Takeo. So, but yes, I think they're both great options. We added Inuus several months ago because we had a lot of people who wanted to run Rune, and they wanted a solution for that. And Inuus offers a very good solution. They just so happen to offer a great app on their own that's been built from the ground up. So the original Inuus app was not so great. So they scrapped it. They started from scratch, and they built this one, and this one is light years better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay. The next one comes from Robert Jan Lankhurst. Sorry if I butchered your name. He said, how do you recognize when brands have synergy? I have Focal Stella Utopias with Griffin amps, but Boulder's supposed to have better synergy. How do you identify this synergy?
Well, that's a great question. Speakers have a characteristic, right? They're either, extremely linear in sound, they're warm in sound, they're maybe more detailed, like a Focal. And so you want a yin and a yang. So you're trying to find electronics that will complement the speaker. Or the other way around, the speakers that will complement the electronics, but most people start with the speakers. So the Griffin is a darker sounding electronic, perhaps thinner sounding than something like a Boulder.
Yeah.
So if you had warm, full-bodied speakers, I think the Griffin would be, a great match. I think if you've got, speakers more on the linear, kind of thinner sounding, more tipped up a little bit, then the Boulder is got that meat and potatoes. It's got that density, that body to the sound. I think then the Boulder is going to be a better complement. We have found that the Boulder works very well with Focal, and it works well with a lot of speakers. So, I think, Karma, when I look at the Karma speakers, I tend to prefer something a little more, linear, like the Block, because the Block audio's got that warmth, but it's not as dense sounding and full sounding as the Boulder, but it's not thin by any means, but it's more middle of the road, if you will. And I think something like the Luxman sounds incredible with the Karma.
Agreed.
It's got that sweetness, that definition,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's very, very good. So it's really a yin and a yang. So I could see the Boulder being a better match for your Focals, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we did have Dan. He just wanted to know, what is Taz?
Taz is Taiko's own software. It was sort of their first attempt to build a software interface. So, we kept hearing, you really don't know how good this Taiko is until you hear it with, better software. And so Taz we've had for a couple of years, maybe a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
We've been using it.
Maybe more than that now.
Right.
And it's constantly evolving.
Right. In terms of interfaces, it's like going back in time 20 years. It really isn't a great interface. But Taz was not meant to be a final destination software product. It was meant to be a teaser to Taiko owners to say, this is how good the Taiko can be. So Taiko is currently working on a new software product that they're developing in-house. It's going to be called XDMS. And it's going to be, everything we want from a software standpoint. So, great interface, great graphics, great search capability, playlist capability, all the functions and features that we want, but with the sound of Taz or better. So we're anxiously waiting for that. But as someone who comes from a software development program, I completely understand why these things take time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of bugs to fix, a lot of code to write and rewrite to get right. So it's not an easy task. And the team at Taiko, I know, is working very hard. So we're anxiously waiting for that. And we know that's going to, sort of take the Taiko to the level that the owners are expecting.
Oh yeah, and the Taiko is incredible. The USB module,
There's going to be, I believe, a new network module coming as well for the Taiko. So we're excited to get our hands on that. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So next question comes from CA Flat again, and he wants to know what interconnect do we recommend for the best synergy with MSB DACs. So that's a tough one.
Well, I need to know a little bit about the rest of your system. So your preamp, your amp, your speakers, things like that. in terms of what do we use in the store, we use with our MSB Select 2, we use Nordost Odin 2 interconnects. We found those to be exceptionally good. With the Discreet and the Premier, we use the AudioQuest Dragon interconnects. We don't have inexpensive cables in the store.
No,
we're
do
kind
not.
of big believers in the cables and what they can do. So the Discreet in the back room also has the Shinyata Alpha. So that's been a good combination. So I'd need to know a little bit more about your preamp, your amp, and your speakers to kind of give you some advice. In my own experiment at home, I don't know if I mentioned this on another video, but I went through a long list of interconnects. My wife had left for a month to go visit family in Canada, and I had a whole month to bring home all the cables in the store and experiment in my own system.
I didn't have any cables.
Yeah, there was no cables. People were walking in and I want to hear it. No, Mike's taking all the cables. Anyway, but what we found, what I found was for me, okay, and this is not an inexpensive cable, so I'm not saying run out and buy it. But for me, I'm saying the Nordost Odin 2 was the best cable by far that I tried in my system between the DAC and the preamp. I thought it was unbelievable. And I told the story, if you've missed it, I told the story that, I was alone in the house and, the family had been gone a couple of weeks and I was going through all the cables. I brought home, all the Nordost cables, Valhalla 2 and, all the different models that they had because we have them all in the store. And I brought home the Wire World, the Platinum, the Eclipse, the Shinyata, the AudioQuest Dragons, and various others, the Firebird. I had tons of interconnects I was trying. And it was just starting with that step. So I was just trying to find which one. And I was using Eric Clapton's album Lady on the Balcony, I think it's called. Lady on the Balcony. Anyway.
I think so.
And there was a particular track I was using, and I was using it over and over and over again to go through and kind of evaluate the dimensionality and the resolution, the transparency. And I got to the Odin 2, and it was late at night. It was probably a Wednesday night at midnight, and it's late at night, and I'm alone in the house, and I hear this person breathing, and I hear them swallow. And I get goosebumps. I jump out of my chair thinking, oh my God, somebody's in the house. No, it was actually that Odin 2 cable had actually brought out that transparency, that resolution, that amount of detail that was in the recording that I didn't pick up on with some of the other cables we tried. So that one definitely stayed. And, from that point on, I tried an interconnect between the preamp and the amp, and found that the Odin 2 wasn't the best in that case. I preferred the AudioQuest Dragon. So sometimes it could be too much of a good thing. So there's a whole lot of talk out there about the full loom theory. Oh, I've got to go with a full loom and full loom. I don't think so. I think you need to experiment.
A quick question that has to do with the same thing. Was Analysis Plus Silver Apex one that you tested by chance?
Not the interconnect. No, I only have this. We only have left in the store the power cables right now. The interconnects we sold them. We haven't brought them in. Analysis Plus is a great brand, great value. I really like the sound of them, but it doesn't quite, there's not a lot of people inquiring about it. So to keep those cables in the store and it just doesn't make sense because, maybe 3 people a year have asked about Analysis Plus, where every day it's Shinyata, AudioQuest, and Nordost, and occasionally Wire World. So it just doesn't make sense. There's so many cable brands out there, you'll drive yourself insane looking at all the cable manufacturers.
Oh yeah, homemakers, guys that do their own thing.
Totally. And I'm not here to convince people. If you say, listen, cables don't matter, that's fine. That's your belief. I completely disagree. Not because I sell them, but because I play with different cables all day long, and inductance and capacitance and material and shielding, and everything makes a big difference in cables and how they perform. But if you simply say, hey, I don't believe in them, fine. That's perfectly fine. I'm not here to convince anybody. It's not my job, but we've had many disbelievers come in the store and leave believers. So I'll leave it at that.
Got it. Okay. So Daryl McBain, he just mentioned that when you brought out the Boz Scaggs album,
Uh-huh.
he said you reminded him that he has a Boz Scaggs DVD concert of his greatest hits live. And it didn't come out on Blu-ray, so the video wasn't that great, but still very enjoyable. So he just wanted to mention that.
Well, that's good. I actually didn't know it was out on video. That's thanks for letting me know. And it would be great to have this out on high-res Blu-ray, but I guess, HD recordings in 2004, probably they weren't doing HD recordings back then.
In 2004, I think it was just DVD.
Yeah, just standard resolution.
Yeah, unless it was film, and then film could be rescanned.
Well, the film would have been great, but thanks for letting us know. But I think sonically, like I said, it's on Qobuz, it's on Tidal, the CD. And the vinyl, I mean, get on every format. The vinyl's a little harder to find. It seems that it goes into press and then it's gone, and then they repress it and it's gone again. So if you do get to snag a copy, it's not a lot of money. I think it's like $29 on Amazon or Elusive Disc or whatever. So it's definitely a great album. I would say the quality of the recording is probably an 8 out of 10. If the Hugh Masekela Hope is a 10 out of 10, there's probably an 8, maybe a 9, but definitely a solid 8 out of 10. The pressing, again, I would say is about an 8 out of 10. It's a good pressing. It's not the quietest I've ever heard, but certainly not noisy.
Mm-hmm. Do we know where it's pressed?
I'm not sure if it says that.
I might be able to find it too.
It says Gray Cat Records, but I'm not sure what pressing plant they use, but
yeah, I could probably look that one up.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll see if we can find it and put it in the notes. But it was mastered by Bernie Grumman, and great group on here. I mean, it's really a good album. It's not one that you see a lot of in regular rotation, but I would encourage people to go have a listen if you like Boz Scaggs. He has a unique voice, but I like it. So
you can tell we like to go off on tangents a little bit here at Suncoast Audio. We do this quite often.
Yeah, we do.
So our next question comes from Dan, and he was the one who asked about Taz. So he said the Takeo, he's sure it's great. Do they make anything that's non-extreme pricing?
No, not really.
Not yet.
I mean, their older product was still very, very expensive. But no, honestly, Takeo would be the Bugatti of the audio industry. So it is the ultimate extreme in terms of expense and cost for the item. It's very, very good. I mean, the thing is the size of an amplifier. It's so heavy and big. I mean, they spared no expense in building it. But no, to answer your question, no. But that doesn't mean you can't get great sound from other products that we've been talking about.
Correct.
The Inuus and the Arender. They both make less expensive products that still deliver great sound.
I would definitely agree. Okay, so Timothy Garin says, what's your favorite type of music for testing out new equipment at the shop?
Well, we use Daft Punk to break in equipment.
We do.
We put it on repeat because it'll just drive the woofers to smithereens.
Well, it runs the frequency spectrum across the board.
It does, the Daft Punk. But in terms of testing out music, critically listening, honestly, I'm a music person first, so I could grab this album and know how it sounds on my home system and play it on something in the store to evaluate. I would say, Hugh Masekela Hope, which I've talked about a number of times, is an album that we would pull out when we want to hear how dynamic a system can be. But there's really, I listen to so much different music, and I mean, you don't want to say, well, there's these 5 tracks that we use consistently. We have uploaded to Qobuz the Suncoast Audio playlist, and a lot of those tracks, you can look it up on the playlist under Qobuz. You can pull up Suncoast Audio, play up our playlist. A lot of those are in rotation for evaluating new equipment, new speakers, things like that. That'll give you a really good indication. So there's a lot of songs in there. You know, for example, there's a Prince song in our list from 1999, I think.
Likely,
Anyway,
yeah, around there.
and it's overly sibilant, the recording. It's a great recording, even from back then. It's just a fantastic recording, but it's overly sibilant. So it is a track I use to kind of listen to whether the equipment is smoothing out some of that sibilance or whether it's accentuating it. So go check out that playlist that we uploaded, and we're constantly changing the songs and adding new ones and deleting it. But for me, honestly, I listen to music. I bring out anything. I was just listening to Gordon Lightfoot's Sundown Mobile Fidelity pressing 1978 from Mobile Fidelity.
From the master tapes.
From the master tapes. It was sounding fantastic. And, you know, I was listening to a new pair of speakers. So, I mean, I play music and I know how the albums sound because I've owned them for so long and I know what they should do. So, yeah.
Okay. Robert Jan Lankhurst, any recommendations for interconnects and speaker cables for the Focal Utopia with Boulder? Source for now is Mola Mola Tambiki, fed from a nucleus, a Roon nucleus.
Well, I mean, have some excellent equipment there. You know,
There's so many different options.
Yeah, I would look at what was with the Boulder. Now, Boulder in the factory uses Focal, correct? I believe.
I think so.
I believe so. And they use, if I'm not mistaken, Nordos cables. And I need to triple check on that, but I believe they use Nordos cables. So if memory serves me correct, and we'll actually have Steve Green from Nordost in the studio tomorrow, but it'll be recorded and we'll be airing it in a few weeks. But I'll ask Steve tomorrow, but I believe in the Boulder factory they have Focal Grande Utopias, I think, and then they're obviously Boulder, and then they have Nordost cables. So I would probably check those out first. I would give those a listen to first. If you find you want something a little warmer sounding, a little more dense sounding, more meat on the bones, I think the Shinyada Sigma is a great interconnect. So I would check that one out, and I would start there. Now, I'll tell you something interesting. If you find that it's still a little tipped up, a little bright, a little sibilant, like the tweeter's just a little too forward for you, I think you want to look at a high capacitance cable like Wireworld. So I'd look at a Wireworld Eclipse or a Wireworld Platinum 8. Even though it's silver, it's still very high capacitance, and it tends to kind of round up off the top and round off the bottom. So
it's almost like an EQ. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I would look at those. I would start with the Nordost and assess, and you may really love what it's doing. If you find you want some more warmth, I'd try the Shinyada, and if you find you need to really tame that tweeter, then I would look at a high capacitance cable like the Wireworld, either the Eclipse or the Platinum. I find the gold is good too, the silver is good, but I find that it's either for me the Eclipse or the Platinum, either in between. Yeah.
Okay. So our next question comes from Timothy Garin again. He wants to know, what turntables do we prefer for someone just getting into vinyl? And he is looking for something that's high quality but still affordable. I would guess it's not in there, but I would guess
depending on your budget, we start people with the Rigas, and the P3 is a great starting point. You can get the P3 with a great cartridge for approximately the arm, the cartridge, and the table for approximately $1,300. Obviously, you can step up beyond that and go to a P6 for a couple of grand, and you can go to a P8 from Riga for, $4,000, $5,000, depending on which cartridge you choose. So at that level, kind of $5K and below, we really recommend the Rigas. They're no fuss, no muss. They just take them out of the box. You do 5 minutes, you're up and running. It's very simple. The cartridges are installed, the arm's installed, everything's set up. The cartridge is designed to go with the arm, so you're not messing with VTA and you have to tweak it and get really tweaky. You do have to balance the counterweight on the back. Other than that, you're off to the races. So really simple, and then go buy tons of records and have fun.
Exactly.
Beyond that, we like the VPIs, sort of 5K, up to, wherever. The VPIs are really good. They've got a number of great tables that they make. I love the Avenger, but it's a lot more money. It's like 20 grand. But anyway, suffice it to say, you've got the Prime. You've got the Prime Scout, right, Mike? You've got a number of tables from VPI that are a little bit more expensive, a little bit more luxurious. You're going to have to mess with the arm a little bit more, and then you're going to have to figure out which cartridge to go for. So they don't come with a cartridge, but we can help you. Ortophon is a good match. There's some other ones as well. So we always put something like a Prime or a Prime Signature. We would put with something like an Ortophon Cadenza Black. That's a great dead nuts neutral cartridge, quiet tracker, doesn't break the bank. And then you either go with the gimbal arm from VPI, or you would go with the Unipivot. I prefer the gimbal arm because I find the Unipivot is just too tricky.
Well, especially for a new.
Well, I'm talking for new people. I mean, if you not have the experience, it's got this very sharp tip. Imagine like a fine needle.
Literally.
Yeah, medical needle. And then you've got to get it in this tiny little groove. So you underneath the arm, you've got this tiny little hole, and you've got to get it just right. And most people miss it, and then the spike, the little needle part is actually, not centered. So the Unipivot is moving around, so it's not in that groove. So in that slot, if you will. The gimbal arm is completely different design and much easier to set up, and you don't have to worry about if you knock it off or you have to set it up. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Sonically, I don't know. I think they both sound great. I mean, Matt's done a great job at VPI, and I think the gimbal or the Unipivot, they're both great.
They are.
The gimbal, you may have to get the azimuth more correct. You may have to tweak with the azimuth a little bit,
which we can help with.
Once it's set up, you don't have to worry about it. But the Unipivot is gonna track, along with the grooves, because that's how a Unipivot works. So it's not as crucial with the azimuth.
Okay. We have a question from Top Gear 77, which is probably the best name so far.
Top Gear.
I'd say, yeah.
Love Top Gear.
Top Gear is outstanding.
Love the older guys on Top Gear, but the newer guys are pretty good too.
Yeah, I like the old Top Gear too. And he asked, he said, thanks for our time.
Thank you.
Then he had a question on turntables again from Kuzma. Can you please share your experience in Kuzma Stabi S, R, and M?
Okay.
Which turntable is the sweet spot in the Kuzma lineup? So that's a great question.
I'll let you answer that question.
Okay, so in my opinion, it would definitely be the Stabi R. The Stabi R is outstanding with the 4-point tone arm. The Kuzma 4-point tone arm is one of the best engineered tone arms in the industry. It's quiet, it has damping, it's incredible, and the table itself, for the money, it's just outstanding. It's you've got a belt. It's a belt drive, so it's nice and quiet, very natural, very open sounding, very airy depending on the cartridge that you go with. It's just a good, solid platform to start with if you have the budget for it. So the sweet spot would definitely be the R, and we do have one at the shop, so you're welcome to come have a listen if you'd like. But that would be my opinion. Would you agree, Mike?
I think if you're talking Kuzma, you definitely want to go in at the M. The S is a great table, and there's a lot of arguments to be made to start with the S, from Kuzma. But we have found that the M is really the sweet spot.
Oh, was it the M that we have at the shop or the R?
Oh, now you got me confused.
I think it's the R that we have at the shop.
Okay, my mistake. I do get them confused, but we have the one in the middle. That's all I know. We have the one in the middle at the store, and I think that is really what we have found currently to be the sweet spot. The S is a great starter table, and there's a lot you can do if you really like to tweak. There's a lot of tweaking options with the starter table, but the Stubby R is definitely the one that we enjoy the most. So I'm not sure there's a big performance jump from the R to the M, but I would certainly put the money into the arm is where I would put the money,
Yep.
for sure.
Get
We
that
got ours with
4-point.
an American walnut plinth that it kind of looks like this desk, actually.
It does.
And it's just beautiful. Everybody comes in, looks at it, and loves it. It's heavy. We did get the upgraded arm. I think we went with was it the audio? Which one did we go with?
I think you're talking about cable.
The cable from the arm runs directly from the arm through to the phono stage.
Correct. I
Which
think
one?
I want to say it's the crystal.
Oh, we went with the crystal. Okay.
But I'm not positive. And we clarified this just recently. We had this clarified.
Yeah.
Because we had a client that picked up the same table after hearing ours. So that's something to be said.
Yeah. So there's some different wiring options you can get with the arm as well. And we always recommend, with the Kuzmas to run it directly from the arm through to the phono stage. So you're not going to a junction box essentially. So that gives you the best sound for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then so we had someone that tuned in a little later, and they just wanted to know about the Boz Scaggs album, just the title of that Boz.
Sure,
Scaggs
it's
album.
Boz Scaggs' Greatest Hits Live, and it was recorded in 2004 in San Francisco. Quality of the recording is very, very good, and the song selection is great. It's actually very exciting. It's got a lot of life to it. I think it's a great album. I check it out. It's on Qobuz, Tidal, CD, vinyl, and apparently it's even on video. It's on DVD.
Yeah,
So,
we just found out in the chat.
So that's cool. Great album. Check it out. And I'll try and do this every week because I'll try and bring out some gems that I found in my collection that are good recordings, but also good music. It's good. It's well recorded, but good music as well.
All right. So the next question comes from Comicide. Any chance you could describe the Fine Audio F703 sound and what it lacks?
What it lacks?
It's an interesting question.
It's not what you would expect. When I first heard the Fines back in Munich, Germany, the company was just debuting, and they were at Hi-Fi Deluxe, which is, if you go to the Munich high-end show, they have the MOC, which is the big conference center, and there's multiple buildings and multiple levels where all of the known brands go. Then after that ends at 6:00 at night, there's Hi-Fi Deluxe, which is held at the Marriott Munich Hotel. So more traditional, more like we would have expected from the Florida Audio Expo or an Expona, Rocky Mountain, Capital Audio Fest, something more that size. And its focus is on launching new companies or lesser known companies, that show. So I was wandering around and came across the Fine Audio. They had 2 or 3 rooms that first year, and this is going back several years ago. And I walked in, and I had expected them to be more horn, brighter, forward, in your face kind of sounding, and they weren't. So immediately I was very, very interested in this company and got to learn their heritage and how they were ex-Tannoy employees, and they had been there a long time. Let's just say the gentlemen who were talking to me, none of them had dark hair. They had gray hair like me. So they've been around a while. And it was fascinating. And the speakers, I was just blown away. So right away, I told these guys, I want to bring these into the store. They were looking for a U.S. distributor at the time, and they had kind of spoken with one the day before, and things were starting to get into place. But long story short, we were the first Fine dealer in the country, and we brought in the 702s, the 502 SPs, 703, 704, F112s, and we had a bunch of them on the floor. And everyone thinks they're going to be more like, in your face, more like shouty, more. They're not.
No,
They're
they
the
are not.
opposite.
They're
laid back. They're smooth. They're coherent. They're kind of warm, actually sounding. So they're really a fantastic speaker. And I know Jim Smith, the setup, speaker setup guru, Jim Smith of Get Better Sound, is using the 703s as his main speakers now. So
that says a lot.
That says a lot. Jim had the Tannoys, and then he went to a different brand that didn't work out, and now he has the Fine Audios, and he's very, very happy with the 703s. So I think what are they lacking? They're certainly not going to have lots of sparkle in the top end because they're so smooth. The bass is tight.
I can't think of any downsides to the 70, especially the 703. It's super weighty.
What are they lacking? Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, the treble is dialed in perfectly. The mid-range is beautiful, creamy. I mean, it's a British speaker. It's outstanding.
I mean, if you're like one of our customers, his name is Jerry, and he lives in Tampa, and he keeps saying, I want more bite. I want more bite. Then maybe that would be a downside, because Jerry, I think he's needing some hearing adjustment. Everything he wants is brightness. He wants bite. So they're not bright, and they don't have bite. So they wouldn't be for Jerry.
If you're looking for super analytical, it probably wouldn't be the speaker for you.
No, they wouldn't be analytical. I guess if I had to be nitpicky, I would like to see, more attention paid to cabinet resonances. Maybe getting rid of some of those, but then the costs are going to go up, If they were to put like an aluminum plate on the front, like Bowers and Wilkins does to kind of control resonances, or all aluminum like Magico does and YG does, then I think, the costs are going to go through the roof. So there are some, like any typical wood box speaker, there are going to be some resonances. But that being said, the overall presentation and value for the budget, for the price, is off the charts.
Yeah, and it's not like the cabinet resonances are crazy. They're very minor.
Yeah. I will be sure that you've got a big enough room for the 703. You're going to want something,
it's a big speaker,
17 by 22-ish.
At the least.
It's bigger than you think. If you've got a smaller room, like 15 by 18, 14 by 18, something like that, you're going to want to go for the 702s. That's going to be a better fit. The 704s are monsters. They need a very big room, like 22 by 27, 28. They're a big speaker. They move a lot of air. I find the F1 series can fit into a smaller environment easier than the 7 series. Also, you've got the 502 SP, which is essentially the same drivers and almost identical crossover of the 702 in the 502 cabinet, which is more, squared. It's more of a square cabinet, whereas the 700 series cabinet is more tapered at the back. So if you don't care about any of that, a great value is the 502 SP. It is again, a more of a square traditional box cabinet, but it has the guts of the 702, essentially the same drivers and almost the same crossover.
Yeah, the 502 SP is outstanding for the money. Okay, this one comes from I remember this gentleman, Divertity, from our first stream.
Okay,
he wants to know, how do you know when enough is enough in audio? Is it always an endless journey of pinning for the next best thing and never being satisfied? And that's the question. It's a great question. There's been people that I've come across in audio that they get so frustrated because they're like, when does it end? When does it end? That they want to get to a point where that's it. And you obviously can get there. You can just stop
reading the magazines and paying attention to the new equipment that's coming out. And you can also still drive your 1983 Pontiac Parisienne, and say, I don't need the new car. I don't need any of that new stuff, and be satisfied. But I tell people, it really is about the journey more than it is about the destination. So if you enjoy the journey, then it's all fun. If you are somebody that says, I have to just get to an endpoint, then you'll know when you get to that endpoint is when you literally stop reading the magazines and stop reading about what's new. And when you're listening, you're not thinking, I wonder what it would like if I had different amplifiers. I wonder if it would sound like if I had a different DAC or whatever. If you get to that point, then you're certainly there. We joke, I have a lot of audiophile friends, and we joke amongst ourselves because one of us will get a new product, and we'll email the entire group and we'll say, or not email, we'll text the entire group and we'll say, I'm done. And that's the biggest joke that we all say, sure, for this week, because we all know we're all guilty of it.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many customers we've had come in and say, this is going to be my last system.
Yeah.
I want this to be my last system.
Right.
And then in 2 months,
in
3
2
months,
years or whatever, we see them in the store again. And yeah, I mean, enjoy the journey. I mean, I'm a big car guy, so I'm never looking for that last car. My goodness, of course. Right. Then again, with the combustion engine going out and the electric coming, well, we might be forced into that situation. But
that's not for 50 years
or 50 years. But I would say, if you're frustrated by the journey, then you certainly need to go more to the music side. So turn your attention to buying the albums. I was talking about this in the first podcast. If you find that you're getting all worked up about the latest DAC of the month and, this cable and this amp and whatever, maybe put your attention more towards the music side. And that's one of the big reasons I said to people, I strongly encourage to get into vinyl, is because I think you're going to find there's a large group of music lovers that are vinyl guys, and you're going to follow their YouTube channels. You're going to read things online, and you're going to you're going to become more on the music side than the equipment side. Mm-hmm. So that's why I encourage, having a decent turntable. I just don't find there's a lot of people standing up and saying, oh, this is a great album I bought on CD. And I mean, there are people out there doing it, but you got to look pretty hard.
Yeah.
Whereas with the vinyl guys, you don't have to look hard. The other interesting thing is, I was saying to somebody the other day, I've noticed that there's two groups. There's one group that has amazing equipment and great stuff, and 99% of the time they're digital only and whatnot, and that's fine. That's great. But then you have the passionate music lovers that are squirreling through the boxes, looking for the gems, the album, the vinyl, the album, the special music, and their systems suck. I mean, they have speakers from the 70s and an old turntable, but they have 15,000 albums.
Yeah.
So there's really two camps. Obviously, people with a great high-class system can have a great record collection too. I'm not saying it's distinct, but I've just found in my observations of watching different YouTube channels and reading and things online that I've just noticed that a lot of the vinyl guys, they have kind of mediocre systems, but they have amazing music collections, So I would say if you're getting bored or you're frustrated with the journey, then I would just focus on the music, because ultimately that's what it's about anyway.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, let's see. Where were we? Just a moment. I'm just trying to get everything sorted out. We got a lot of questions. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and for the questions. So here's a good one. So this is from Robert Jen Lankhurst. Have you ever heard a DAC that's so good it makes a preamp obsolete? even if you've put it up against a 40 to 50K preamp.
No. I've heard DACs with phenomenal preamp, discrete output sections. But when you put it up against a Solution 725, a Block Audio SE Pre, a Boulder 2110, you like what those preamps do and bring to the show. I know there's a lot of people out there constantly wanting to get rid of the preamp, and of course you can. It's just that you will give up something. You may gain in transparency. It may seem like a whole layer has been removed depending on the preamp. But generally speaking, a world-class preamp, like the ones I mentioned and many, many others that are out on the market, I think are a valuable quarterback in the system. That's really what I've thought.
I would agree.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so this is just a comment. Thank you for sharing good music. This comes from Matthew Matthew Rond. Thank you for sharing good music. At the end of the day, this is why we're buying all this great gear, to enjoy music.
Agreed.
And that is such a great point.
Agreed.
So thank you for that comment, Matthew. Another one from Timothy Garin. He has 2 questions. First off, how often are we going to be doing this live cast?
We're going to try and do the live every 2 weeks. That's our goal. With the understanding that, things get in the business, comes first. Sorry, it does. Yep. So we have to look after our customers and doing the demos and the installs and other things that comes first. But our goal is to try to do Mike and Rick every 2 weeks, and then Mike and myself every 2 weeks as well. So we've lined up a lot of guests for the Mike and Rick show. Nelson Pass and I have been playing telephone tag, so we want Nelson Pass as our first guest on the show. But Steve Green from Nordos will actually be truly the first guest on the show. He's flying in tomorrow or today for tomorrow's podcast. Yeah. So that won't be live, but we're going to have Steve here. We're going to talk a lot about, I'm going to try and bring some of the Nordos products we have in the store, ask Steve to talk about it. But that video I'll probably keep in the can, as they say, for a couple of weeks, because I do want to have Nelson as my first guest on the show, because we're not only friends, but I'm just a big fan of Nelson. So
me too.
Yeah. So I'm excited, but we'll hopefully have Nelson scheduled. I think I actually called him the other day. I called him yesterday, and he said he was loading transistors into the car, and he would call me back. And he called me back, and I was busy, and so we've been playing telephone tag. So we'll definitely get him scheduled for next week, and then we'll do a little bit of post-production work and have that up hopefully by the end of next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the second half of that question is, do you have clients or customers who look for ideal setups for heavy metal music? And what setups do you recommend for that? Heavy metal.
Well, heavy metal. Well, let's think about that for a second. I did have a couple that
we have seen them.
Well, not heavy. I had an older couple come in the store, and they listened to rap, which I was shocked. I actually I still can't believe it to this day. Because if you met this couple, you'd be like, no, there's no way. But yeah, they did. And then I had another gentleman that only listens to electronic music. Mm-hmm. And then we had to build around that. But heavy metal, let me think about
Metallica, stuff like that, I would guess. Maybe or Slayer.
Black Sabbath, Metallica. I mean, I'm a huge AC/DC fan. Mm-hmm. Actually, Brian Johnson lives here locally, and I've golfed with him a bunch of times. He's actually a super nice guy. Really funny story about Brian Johnson. Sorry, I divert. But he had
this is what we do.
He has this big blue Rolls Royce, And so I'm standing at the bag drop where we were golfing at Legacy Golf Course here, and it's actually not far from the store, and it's an Arnold Palmer design course. Anyway, so Brian and I were scheduled to golf together that day, and I'm waiting at the bag drop for him, and up comes this powder blue Rolls Royce. The windows are down, and he's singing Willie Nelson at the top of his lungs. I mean, it just great guy. He's a character. Anyway, hard rock. So I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
So I would think personally that it would be they'd be looking for something, I would guess, highly resolving. So something with tight, punchy bass so that it articulates, because there's a lot going on in metal music. And maybe a sub setup, because there's a lot of low notes in heavy metal. Even the new metal stuff is kind of like that. So there's a lot going on. So I would think something resolving that's easy, basically a depth sound stage that gives you depth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think I would be looking at certainly building around a tube system myself.
That's a good point.
I would be looking at tube amps, tube preamp. Then I would want to know, is it older heavy metal or newer heavy metal music? You know, there's are we talking, you know, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, you know, Iron Maiden kind of, you know, heavy metal, or are we talking something newer?
Right.
So I need to know a little bit more about that, but I would build a tube system, and then in terms of speakers, wow.
I mean, honestly,
it wouldn't be a Sonus Faber or a Harbeth or something that's warm and just doesn't rock. You know,
has to be dynamic.
I think the Vivid loudspeakers would be good because they're very forgiving on the top end. I think the Fines actually would be pretty good. I think the Fines with a fine system, a pair of 703s and a nice tube preamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do something like that, because you'll have the efficiency, so you're going to have the dynamics from the Fines, but then the tubes are going to help smooth out some of the less than stellar recording.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I would do.
Interesting. Okay. He did clarify newer metal.
I still would go with the tubes and the fine audio.
Yeah, because there's a lot of sibilant high frequency stuff going on in metal, I think.
Yeah, and the fines are smooth on top, very smooth on top, and then I think the tube electronics will just give it more of an organic presentation.
Yeah, that was an interesting question.
That was a great question. Yeah.
Okay, this one comes from Matthew Rond. The Vantage Live from YG Acoustics. You mentioned those were the best sounding speakers you've heard from YG.
Yes.
Any further thoughts on active speakers, and do you think they could be the future of hi-fi?
Great question. I am currently looking for an active speaker line. We tried the Lin. It didn't really work out for us. Kef has an active speaker. The YGs that we heard were fantastic. Those active speakers were absolutely, they were probably the best I've heard active speaker wise. That being said, ATC would be something I would look at. Rick has been pushing me in that direction because they have a lineup of active speakers. And then last but not least, don't forget Avant-Garde's entire new lineup is active. So the Zero, the Duo Mini, the Duo Mezzo, the Trio, they're all can be ordered active, and I've heard them and they sound best active.
They do.
I can't believe I'm even saying that, but they do. So we do have a pair of Duo, not XDs, what am I saying? Duo G3s. The new series called the G3. The previous series was called XD, but the Duo G3 we have ordered active. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't think there's going to be an Uno, Mike. There's not going to be an Uno G3.
Really?
No, it's going to be called Duo Mini.
Oh, okay.
So the benefit is you're going to have the bigger horn, but the shorter, smaller cabinet, but you're not going to have, this sound. When you get the Uno, you can get too much of a cup sound. Whereas the Duo, we find it's kind of not really there as much. It's probably 95% gone. So the Uno, because the horn was so much smaller, kind of gave that cupped horn sound. But the Duo Mini, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and the Duo, as well.
That's interesting, and they sound absolutely incredible.
Yeah. We'd love a pair of trios in the store, but there would be no room left for me and Mike in the store. So
no, they're gigantic.
They're big speaker. They take up a lot of room. You need a big room for those.
You do. Okay, so this one comes from Top Gear 77, same guy that asked about the Kuzma gear. So he said, is it worthwhile to invest in a longer 4-point tone arm, such as the 11 or 14 inch, to go with the Stabi R, or better to use the funds for a better cartridge? So can I answer?
Go for it.
I personally would go with the shorter arm. Based on our experience, in my experience, I find the shorter arm sounds good, but that's a tough one.
I wouldn't do shorter than the 11. Because
with the Stabi
then
R,
you can't
actually,
do VTA
right.
on the fly, right?
That's true. That's a good point.
So I would do the Stabi. I would do the 11 point. You don't need the 14 point. I mean, then it's just getting awkward. It's like, it's so big. I mean, if you're really out there in the vinyl, you got 15,000 records, and you're going to be, that's going to be your sole source. I think the 14 would be great. But the 11, its advantage over the 9 is that it has VTA on the fly.
And it's just outstanding.
It's a better arm. I mean, the 11, I think, is the one you want to get. So it's the arm in the middle, the table in the middle, and then put the money into a good cartridge. We like the Koetsu. It's, a little bit richer. I love the Mysonic Labs. I think they're incredible. They're fast, they're dynamic, they're quiet trackers. They're one of my favorites. So we have Lyra, we've got Ordophon, a number of different cartridges as well, but those are our favorites that we have in the store for sure.
Yeah, I think if you were to go with the 9, it would be better on something like the Stabi S, a more entry level table.
Yeah, the Stabi S with a 9 and an entry level Koetsu or a Mysonic Labs would be great.
That would be a killer
really
first
good
setup.
I'm interested in that. Is it Kuzma that came out with a new arm, right? They came with a new white arm. I forget what they call it. Was that
Kuzma?
Yeah, I think it was Kuzma. Yeah. I have to dig in a little bit more about that.
We'll look into it.
And then I keep seeing pictures of the new esoteric turntable, and it's audio porn if there ever was one,
Yeah.
That turntable is wow. But I think it's going to be over $70,000 for that table. But very interesting motor mechanism. So, yeah, I'm interested in that one.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Air Force tables a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit. Okay, what do we have now? This one comes from Jeff MNH76. With what's going on with MoFi, do you see some folks abandon records and switch to streaming?
Well, I think for those who are not aware, the mobile fidelity situation has been front and center in the audio world for the last few weeks, and it came about when Mobile Fidelity said that they were going to have 40,000 copies available of Michael Jackson's Thriller on the one step. So the people looked at it and they said, you can make a stamper from 1,000. So for every time you make you run the tape, you make one stamper, and that stamper can produce 1,000 records. Correct. So you'd have to run the master tapes 40 times. That would probably wear those out, and I doubt the company that owns the rights would allow that. So people started to get suspicious, and then Michael, what is his name? Oh, who's the guy that broke the story?
I forget his last name. Here, I'll look it up real quick here.
Anyway, he's a record store owner, and he arranged a meeting. He went and met with the engineers, and they basically said that since 2011, I believe, a lot of the Mobile Fidelity albums had been master tape to DXD, or DSD64 and then cut to vinyl. So that obviously created a huge, ruffle. I'm not personally bothered because, quite frankly, as I posted on Audio Shark, I started sending emails to Michael Framer in 2019 telling him these Mobile Fidelity One Steps, they sound like there's a digital step in the chain. So I have several emails back and forth with Michael starting back in 2019 telling him what I was hearing. So when news broke, I sort of like, well, I'm not surprised, but that doesn't mean that the albums don't sound great. The Abraxas is the best I ever heard. I don't know why people are ripping on the Simon and Garfunkel. I think it sounds amazing. It's the best I've ever heard of Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
Agreed.
The Monk sounds incredible. The Monk album is fantastic. I mean, many of the One Steps are the best I've ever heard. So I think people are kind of blowing out of proportion. Obviously, the engineers, the mastering engineers felt that this was a necessary step, and if you read into it, there's a way that they can, sort of convert the tape to a DXD file, and then through a process fix any of the flaws that are maybe inherent with the tape, and then press from there. So they were probably looking at it from the technical side, saying this is a good thing. This is going to allow us to correct any of the problems that are inherent with the master tape and be able to press it. So I'm not really bothered. I'm not really getting too much involved with it. I love my Mobile Fidelity albums. I'm going to keep buying them. And I also buy the SACDs. I buy the Mobile Fidelity SACDs and I buy the vinyl. I buy both and I listen to both. So it's not going to faze me in the least. I look, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I posted the emails on Audio Shark if anybody wants to see them.
You called it.
And I heard it. So I'm not bothered by it. It's not the end of the world. Does that mean I can always hear it? Hell no. But I could hear it in some of these One Steps, and I just felt something comparing them to originals and other vinyl pressings I had of those same albums. I think, well, maybe there is something, maybe there is a digital step in here, and I basically heard it and I'm not bothered by it because I still, as I maintain, those One Steps sound fantastic. Now the Bill Evans is all analog.
Yeah,
that Bill Evans One Step is according to Mobile Fidelity is all analog, so it's great.
Was it Michael Ludwig? Is that the guy's name? That broke it?
No, I forget his. Michael,
it's on his YouTube.
I forget the gentleman's last name, but
anyway.
he's a record store owner, but there's been a lot of people covering it, and we don't need to get
In
into
the Groove on YouTube, isn't it?
The
In Groove.
The In Groove is his YouTube channel, and you can go back and watch his various videos on the topic. And there's been others that have covered it, but I'm not really bothered by it. Like I said, they still, many of those still sound the best I've ever heard. I would. The funny thing is I bought the Abraxas for $99 when it first came out. And I remember bitching and moaning to anybody who would listen to me that I just paid $100 for a record. But guess what it's worth today? A lot more. So I didn't buy it for value, but it is the best sounding I have of that album. So I'm glad I own it,
We're having technical issues, folks. Give me just a moment. Stand by, folks. We're just trying to fix these. We had the cameras all shut off at the same time, so we'll be right back with you. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. We are still here. We just had a few technical issues. I guess the camera's timed out after a certain amount of time, so we are back.
But thank you for the question on the mobile fidelity. So
Yeah.
to answer your question, I don't think it's going to, prevent or discourage people from buying records, because I think, that data shows that it's actually going up exponentially. So I think you're going to see people always seeking out great recordings, great pressings of their favorite albums. There's so many great ones out there, Analog Productions. You've got Tone Poet, Music Matters. You've got a ton of, companies making records, and the MoFis. As I said, I'm going to keep buying them. I think they sound great. So
yeah, I agree. Okay, so we have a hello from New Hampshire. He'll be down to see us soon.
Great.
A hello from Croatia, and he says, what speakers would you recommend for the Luxman 509X?
What size is his room?
Yeah, what size is your room, Risbo? Let's see. We've got a hello from... This is a hard one. Queen Setchel? That may... okay, let's see. Greetings from Slovakia.
Wow.
What do you think about legacy speakers?
I get this question a lot. They're always at the shows. They used to come to the Florida Audio Expo. They haven't since COVID started. I think they might be a little bit concerned, but hopefully this year they'll be back. They're good. I think the legacy speakers always sound pretty good. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I always wander into their rooms and I listen, and they sound good. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of great speakers out there, and there's no best speaker. I think, there's different philosophies for design, and I think people need to get out and listen. And if you like the sound of those, that's great, fantastic. But remember, you have, dynamic loudspeakers that have multiple designs out there. And then you've got dipoles, and you've got omnipoles, and you've got horns, and you've got so many different types of speakers that are out there. So people need to really get out and explore, what checks all the boxes for them.
Absolutely. Okay, so Tony B asked, Luxman 509X or the new 507Z, which one is more on the warmer side?
I would say that's a great question. The 507Z is one notch warmer than the 509X. Yeah. It isn't at the same warmth as a 590 or, the 595, but it is still edging in that direction more so than, say, the older 509.
All right. And then we have another one. Thank you he basically just said, thank you for your honest assessment of the MoFi controversy.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, and then from CA Flat, he said, how much is a really good record cleaning machine?
Well, I think I like the ultrasonics. I use the degritter myself. We sell the degritter. There's several others out there. They're also very good. There's the Audio Desk, the Claudio, the Clear Audio Double Matrix. There's a variety of good ones that are out there. I like the degritter. It cleans good. It works. We've done a video here on our channel where we've cleaned it with one and then cleaned it with the degritter, and we've played and showed people that the degritter does a very good job. So I like its size. I think it's really good. We sell a lot of them. We buy them by the skid load. I mean, literally the truckload, and I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. And they're very popular. So yeah, I like the degritter.
And so for the gentleman that asked about speakers with the 509X, his room is, I think, if I'm reading this correctly, it's 20 meters squared, which would be 65 feet by 65 feet.
No. It would be much smaller. 20 meters squared. So it's a pretty.
Yeah, he said 20 m2.
Yeah. So that's going to be a
215 square feet. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So I would say the fine 702 or possibly the 703 would work very well.
Yeah.
It helps us if you can give us width and length and height dimensions, but definitely width and length rather than say it's 20 meters square. I know that the Europeans like to do that, but for us it helps because, your room could be very narrow, right? So it could be 10 by 30. But we need to know the width and the length. But assuming it's a standard shape room of that size, then I would be looking at the fine 702s or the 703s to go with the 509X for sure.
Yeah, depending on budget and all that.
Yeah, that's a popular pairing in the store.
Absolutely.
The new Neat acoustics work very well with the 509, and they would work well in your room. Again, depending on your budget, you've got the Bowers and Wilkins 804D4s, the Magico A3s would work really well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, lots of options.
All right. So we've got a 2-part question from Skebetine. As a Hagel dealer, why don't Hagel's standalone power amplifiers get more attention like the H20? It seems like most Hagel attention is on their integrateds, and that is a very good point.
That's a really good question. And I think that's just they're long in the tooth. So I think that's why we saw the H30's replacement called the H35, if memory serves me correct, debut at Munich this year. So we're going to hopefully see more announcements about newer stereo amps coming out from Hagel by the end of the year. So keep a watch out for that. But you're right. The H30 is a great stereo amp. I actually used to have one at home, and then I bought a second one. I actually preferred the sound of the stereo to the monos, if you can believe it. I felt that the stereo was a little sweeter sounding, more musical. I thought the monos were a little more neutral. So the H30 is getting a facelift, and we should see the replacement very, very soon here by the end of the year.
All right.
But good question.
Yeah, very good question. That's one that I've never heard.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So from Tony B, he wants to know on our thoughts on the Swedish Martin speakers.
Well, I've heard them at Munich. I may have heard them, I'm trying to remember, at CES way back when CES loved high-end audio instead of drones. And possibly at Expona.
I don't think I've heard them. Have I heard them?
No, I don't think you have. Like the Coltrane, and they have a lot of different speakers. I like them. I don't know about their distribution here in the US. I heard some things, so I don't know. It's not a speaker I've looked at seriously. I remember hearing them in Munich, and I liked it. I thought it was a Coltrane 3, maybe. I'm going by memory here. But that I liked a lot. So the Martin speakers, it's just a brand that really hasn't had a lot of traction in the US. And again, that would be for Martin to look at and figure out why. So I don't know.
All right. It looks like we just lost cameras again, so we are going to go ahead and end things.
Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We'll get them ironed out on our next podcast for sure.
Yeah, I've got you on camera 1, so you can at least look at camera 1
okay.
right here.
Okay.
The middle one.
Oh, the middle one. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get things figured out. There's probably a weird setting in these cameras that we've got to adjust, and
it's also very hot in this room. I think they're
very hot. Yeah, we have a lot of lights in this room. So, but we appreciate everybody watching today. We'll definitely do this again in a couple of weeks, and check out Audio Shark. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.